resistance is futile. Your life, as it has been, is over. From this time forward, you will service us.
No, we will not service Washington.
Mr. Worf, fire.
Well, welcome to another live edition of the Renegade and the Rambler show. I am the Renegade, Dan Bailey, and I am joined tonight by the co-host, Jeff Johnson, and Suzanne's going to be supervising us, gentlemen, so we don't get off into the weeds. And I also have Kurt Holland here. He's running for the 91st 91st PA House of Representatives. One of these days, I will not get tongue-tied when I'm trying to introduce somebody. So, primaries are right around the corner. It happens, I believe, the first Tuesday of May?
Yeah, 15th. 15th of May.
15th of May. So, in Pennsylvania, that's a closed party vote. You can only participate if you're Republican or Democrat. One of the downsides in Pennsylvania. But
independents don't have a vote.
Right. One of the downsides in Pennsylvania, but it is the system we have right now, so we want to work within the system to fix the system eventually. So, why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself, like why you're running, general stuff.
A little bit of background on me. I was born in Indiana, the home of Mike Pence, and I've been working in politics for a long time. I'd say around 20 some odd years. Normally in the background, I work for National Right to Work, done a lot of speech writing, political op-ed writing, vice president of the YRs. I've done so much politics, I can't remember exactly everything I've done. I enjoy it, and I just think it's time for me to run, and I just chose now to do it. I think that now's a perfectly opportunity time for me to run. For the simple fact is I'm running against a guy that's been there for 12 years and hasn't done anything, and I want to change that. I think representatives need to represent the constituency. And in my district, over 70% of the people don't know who the representative is. Dan Mao, I just kind of find that a little insane that they don't know who the representative is. And he has that kind of a power to affect people's lives, and his votes, it affects the entire state. But he's never headed up a committee, nor has he ever wrote one major bill. So he just basically what they consider a ribbon cutter. The only thing he's really aggressively tried to do in Gettysburg was bring a casino in, which is being a Civil War town. It would never work. 80% of the people don't want a casino in Gettysburg. We've got one in Harrisburg, and we've got one in Charlestown, and we got one in Baltimore. And frankly, casinos on national level is not really doing that well anyway.
It's a poor people's tax.
Yeah, exactly. And they try to push this narrative that it was going to lower property taxes, which in fact, it would never have done that. And it said it was going to create jobs. Was it going to be the same jobs we're doing now? Retail. We need sustainable jobs that can actually sustain a family. And that's the stuff that I'm kind of going for. And the property taxes is a big issue. We're losing too many citizens because we don't have the jobs. And at a 10% corporate rate tax, which is the second highest in the country, it should be zero. For the simple fact is that the consumers pay the tax. So why are we still at 10%? Even under Corbett, we still had a bulletproof majority. They didn't do anything with the corporate tax. We should have already been a national right to work state. That's where all the companies are going, to Texas and the Carolinas, and they're doing very, very well. And but the taxes is what kills people. I mean, you're looking at average of 3.5 a year. And then if it goes above that, it's a referendum. So then they vote on it. It goes to the people. The people just cannot afford it. We have these drive-by assessments is what I call them. It's not uniform. Like when I worked at Wells Fargo, I was a mortgage lender. We had to have a reasonable comps with a certain geographical area. And the comps had to be similar. That's how we got the value. They'll just drive by your house and say your house is worth $380, but in reality, it's only worth $260. But you're paying taxes on that $380. And then they might skip the house, then the house, another house, and go to another house. So there's nothing systematic. There's no uniform there. It's just whatever they want it to be.
See, I'm not a fan of property taxes just based on the simple reason of if you have to pay property tax, you never truly own the property.
No.
You could pay the bank $400,000 for the property, and then the state comes in, oh, you didn't pay us a nickel, takes your property right out from under you, your $400,000 property, and you never see any money because they just sell it for 5 cents. Yeah,
and that's just and the whole thing is that's in the Constitution. They made it perfectly clear property rights. It's even in the Pennsylvania Constitution, property rights. But like you said earlier, we really don't own our property. Even these senior citizens who have owned their property for 40 years and had it paid off still don't own their property. They cannot afford that on Social Security. And what I want to do, and I study other states' models, I want to exempt seniors over the age of 70 altogether from property taxes. And we can eliminate the school tax through House Bill, Senate Bill 76. But the teachers union in Pennsylvania is so powerful, they're buying these people off. And that's one reason why we want term limits. But if you think a politician is going to go sign term limits, they're not going to do it. But the people have the power to vote them out. See, it's the lobbyists and special interest groups that write the bills. They don't do anything. Just sit back and collect the money. Like Truman once said, he says, if you come out of office wealthier than you did when you went in, you're a crook. Well, we got a whole lot of crooks up there. I mean, massive crooks. And it's all hidden in the school tax. It don't go to the schools. It goes to pay pensions. So they're getting out of there. They're retiring with $200,000 or $300,000 pensions, which we're on the hook for. So somehow being a constitutional republic, I don't understand how they could write a contract amongst themselves and put the people on the hook for it.
Right.
Same way with their pay raises. They're supposed to be representing us. They should bring it to us, put it on the ballot as a referendum, and let us vote on it. We're in the top 5 worst ran states in the country. Why do they continuously need a pay raise? When you look at the median income of people in Pennsylvania is low to mid 50s, right?
Right.
And they're getting over $200,000 pensions, and their average salary is almost nearly 90. Oh, come on, if any of us performed like they do, we'd be fired in a heartbeat.
Yes.
But it don't seem to concern them at all because they're getting this free ride.
If you look at some states or some of the counties in the northern part of the state, because I'm up here in Bradford County, and actually the average median income in Bradford County is less than $20,000 a year. The people up here are living in squalor compared to these people in Harrisburg, and they're taxed beyond anything we could possibly pay. I mean, you can thank the Republicans too for all this too. When Corbett was in, they had both houses, and we now have the highest gasoline tax in the United States. Thank you, Mr. Corbett and the Republican Party, for taxing us. I live on the New York border. 7 miles that direction is the New York border. I go there because I have a Duramax diesel. I love my GMC. I'm going to plug. I better get a royalty check from GM for our show here, Daniel. Anyway, I love my Duramax. My diesel up there is 48 cents a gallon less in New York State, and that is all tax. Thank you, Republican Party. So both if you're elected into office, what is going to be your approach to this out of control? And honestly, we can expand all this. I live in where all the natural gas is. At one time, there were drilling rigs everywhere. We are down to one company drilling here, and that is Shell Oil. They'll be gone if now they're talking about taxing again, passing another tax on them. Shell Oil will go. They'll be gone too.
Yeah, it's the impact. They're being taxed already. Now they want to tax them on the volume.
Right.
See, companies are in business to make money, and Wolf is always trying to figure out a way to tax people more and more and more, and they just don't understand that companies are not going to put up with it. They're not going to do it. If they can't make a profit, they're going to leave. And, he's trying to promote all of these casinos all over the state to basically diminish the deficit, and it's just not going to happen. What he's after is not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And he's delusional. And, Mango is right on everything that he says. I mean, our platform is almost identical. And he's not even going to take a salary as governor. I don't know if you guys knew that or not, but he's not even going to take a salary as governor. and he understands, and that's why the establishment is not endorsing him. They endorsed Wagner. So you got to stop and understand that. Why would they not endorse a real conservative like Paul Mango, is West Point grad, 82nd Airborne, proven leader? Why would they endorse Wagner, who's promoting a bathroom bill, late term abortion? He was a Democrat under Rendell. It switches back to a Republican. I mean, he doesn't know whether he's coming or going. He says he's an outsider, but yet how can you be an outsider when you've been in there for 4 years? You're an insider. He's missed over 100 votes, wrote one bill, and didn't vote on his own bill, but he says he's going to fix PA. I mean, come on, nobody's that delusional. This is my theory, and my theory is that the Republican establishment does not want a conservative governor. Why? It's because they would have to address the national right to work. They'd have to address paycheck protection. They'd have to address, the property tax. They got all of these things that they'd have to address. They don't want to do that. They'd rather send it up, get it vetoed, and go back to the constituency and say, hey, we tried, but it was vetoed. No, you guys haven't been trying at all. And that's the bottom line. I mean, they come out a long time ago and endorsed him. This is baloney. And, and for one thing, you can't do that, but they do it anyway. And I told Paul Mango, look, you don't want their endorsement, because the way I see it, and even in my own area of Adams County, I'm not endorsed by the Adams County Committee. I don't want their endorsement. Why? Is because once I take their endorsement, that means I accept everything they've done and everything they will do.
Right. And
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with what they've done, and I don't agree with what they do. So no, I am the perfect outsider. Paul Mango's the perfect outsider. And, a lot of people said a lot of things about Trump, but Trump's getting a lot of good things done. I don't agree with everything, not 100%, but he's accomplished a lot more in 1 year than Obama did in 8. And if he can continue to do what he's doing, I think we're going to be very, very well off as a country. But Pennsylvania is a great state. We've got all the great roadways. We could bring manufacturing here. We could bring jobs back here. We can, have another Bethlehem Steel. And I think everybody would be fine. We just got to get to that point and just get a lot of these deadbeats out of there. And my plan is, and I got a lot of plans. I patent a plan for student loans, and I can't release it because these politicians, they want to steal my ideas. So I had to have a patent. But I believe states cannot file bankruptcy, period. But Illinois is pushing for it. But municipalities can. What I want to do is I think that Harrisburg needs to file bankruptcy and restructure the loans, because at $83 billion in future unfunded pension cost, we can never sustain that. So I don't care what we do, back here or up here or whichever, however you want to look at it, we cannot grow as a state. We cannot start moving in the direction that I want to go. And my idea is, I told Paul Mangos, I want to mirror Texas. I would like to mirror the Carolinas. We can do it. We can do it, but we have to restructure our loans. And what I want to do, this is what I come up with, because everybody coming in is going to be on a 401k. That's fine. We all that in the private sector. So I'm saying if you serve 10 years, if you look at the national average of a contribution or 401k, let's say it's 6%. And then let's look at the match. Well, we'll put that in mathematical formula. You serve 10 years, we'll mathematically say, okay, this is what your retirement's going to be. Not $267,000. That's not going to fly, because we as taxpayers are on the hook for that. And another thing we need to do is consolidate our schools. And teachers need to put more into the 401k, not just 3 or 4 measly percent. They need to be kicking at 8, 9, 10%, because what they don't put in, we as taxpayers have to put in. So everybody has to lift up and do their share. And, that's the idea that I'm going to go to, but I'm going to definitely push to exempt seniors and the disabled from all property taxes.
Well, we brought up the fuel tax or transportation tax.
Yes,
I think is what they call it.
Yep.
As a truck driver, I can tell you the roads are in the worst condition this winter I have ever seen them in my 33 years.
Yes.
Come to find out through friends of friends that is because PennDOT is utilizing a budget scheme from 98. If PennDOT has all this extra money from the transportation tax, why aren't we making sure we have enough salt to put salt on the highway instead of having to shut down the entire eastern part of the state for a snowstorm? because we've had snowstorms before. This was nowhere close to the
Yeah.
largest snowstorm.
No.
And we knew it was coming weeks in advance. Well, at least a week in advance. So my personal opinion is there's no excuse by Wolf to even have to have declared a state of emergency, because PennDOT should have been ready for this.
Yes. Yeah. Kind of goes back to the Hurricane Katrina. You know, I was fully aware of everything, but this transportation tax, I think, is just another front. If you ever notice what they do in Pennsylvania, they'll come up with this transportation tax, which gives us the highest gas tax, which my opponent signed on to. And of course, he just co-sponsors everything. I mean, a chimpanzee can co-sponsor anything. Doesn't mean you believe in it, but he did it. But a lot of that they're tapping into for their own personal use. It's not going where it needs to be going. I mean, yes, Pennsylvania has bad, very, very bad roads. Me and my wife lost 4 windshields in a matter of 9 months. Cracked windshields.
Doesn't surprise
and
me
I ran into a chemist who took a sample of it into his lab. He could not believe the compounds, the chemicals that they use. It's just like a Band-Aid. It's nothing permanent. And then, you drive to some of the more poorer states and they got some of the best roads. So yeah, the state of Pennsylvania is corrupt. Bottom line, it is corrupt. And I think maybe, when I get elected, I would like to push, and maybe Mango, if he's, we're fortunate enough to have him as governor, can, push for an external audit. I just think there's just so much corruption with all this hidden money in these coffers and all this kind of weird stuff. Look, I mean, it's just a bad scene. It really is. And it needs to be cleaned up. And the Republicans are just as bad as the Democrats up there. And they are.
It's just a different brand of elitist. Instead of have the DC elitist, we have the Harrisburg elitist.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and like Suzanne put there, that Oakland did a lot of corruption too, and then spent $85,000 on a new district logo. Why do you need $85,000 for a logo? I do not understand.
Yes,
that is beyond me. But for clarification, I go into Brooklyn every night, and I can tell you for a fact that their fuel price over there on the island is 10 cents cheaper than our prices. No idea why, but it is. It is crazy how much they think that we should be paying so that they get their money in the general fund.
It's absurd. I could fill up in Baltimore City. I was down on Hartford. I filled it for $2.37, and it just about a month ago, gas was almost $4 a gallon here. How much can you tax gas? How much can you tax cigarettes? How much can you tax all of this stuff? I mean, it's just, we're overtaxed. I talked to so many small businesses. One guy was telling me he pays $1,400 a year just in the rainwater tax. He goes, I make $500 a week. I've talked to so many of them. They said, one guy says, as an employer, I pay my employee $500. It costs me $700. We are taxed in so many different things. It's just unbelievable. Small businesses cannot make it. Small business is the backbone of our economy. And they're just doing everything they can to shut them down. I think we're ranked 3rd in the United States as some of the most unfriendliest state for businesses. That's bad. I mean, when you look at across the board where we're ranked on everything, like 14th in opioid overdoses, the amount of money we spend in education, but yet we're just barely mediocre, you start to wonder what's going on. And as a school teacher, I'm here to tell you, kids are not learning. And if they want to spend $5 million for a new football stadium, no, that's just not going to happen. That's just not going to happen. We need to get our priorities straight. And I think we need good leaders. And that's why I push so hard for Paul Mango. I think if we had more veterans in government, I think we'd be a lot better off, because for one thing, they're not going to be bought off like a lot of these crooks. They're not going to be bought off. They're disciplined and they're going to do what needs to be done. I mean, we are trained to look out after our men, and they're only trained up there to look out their own welfare. They don't care about their constituency. And if they did, then how come 70% of the people in my district don't even know the representative? That's bizarre to me.
I can almost guarantee you 80% do not know who the representative is for this area. And he sits on, I believe, the Justice Committee and the PennDOT Committee.
They need to get out there with the people.
Yeah, but they don't care, because they know they're going to run uncontested, because this is a heavily Republican district. So why spend the money? Just
It'll take
sit in Harrisburg and ignore everything and hope nobody gets mad enough to actually run.
It don't take much effort to go knock on doors and meet people. And, you know, my vow is that no matter everybody calls me as a representative, I'm going to get back with them within 72 hours. I'll go out and I'll just knock on doors randomly. I'll talk to people. That's how you learn. That's how you get to know who they are and what their concerns are. And everywhere I go, it's, if they own a small business, I just want to shut it down and leave. If they're home, I'm scared about losing my home. And it's always something along those lines. So, you know, you're not going to be sitting back here and not meeting with your constituency and just running around and getting your picture in a paper. That's not doing the elderly people any good who's on the verge of losing their home.
For the ones trying to raise small families and actually pay their bills or any of that. It's just
exactly
suckling at the teat of the state.
Yes, we spent $521 million in Philadelphia, more than any other city in the United States for the sanctuary city, more than LA. But yet when you look at LA, they have, let's say, I'm estimated 105 illegal right in LA. We only have around 44,000, but we're paying 521. They're paying 505. So let's shut down that sanctuary city and put that money into the infrastructure.
Well, how much, just on the PA Turnpike, how much money is PA Turnpike having to send in to support mass transit in Philly? If mass transit in Philly was so popular, the PA Turnpike wouldn't have to bail them out every year. Yes.
Yep. Exactly. And the fact is, a lot of our taxes here in my district, a lot of those taxes you think would go to our district, but it doesn't. A good portion of that goes into Philadelphia. So it's just like all these towns, all these little towns all throughout the Pennsylvania are being taxed so heavily, but yet it's going to support Pittsburgh and Philly.
I was reading the state constitution. I thought it was rather unique. Philadelphia actually has exemptions in the state constitution to run their own court system. Why do we fund? I mean, I know that you can't change that because it's in the state constitution. You actually would have to amend the constitution. Yes. But why in the world does Philly need its own court system when there is a state court system that we're all paying for? Why are we paying for both?
That is bizarre, isn't it? And frankly, I don't have an answer for that because
sure, it just hit me.
Yes, because I wasn't. Just seems like Pennsylvania just kind of dances a different beat of the drum, and a lot of things that they do does not follow logic, and to come up with a reasonable explanation for it, it's like kind of pulling molars. I don't know why they do a lot of what they do, and it's just a shame. Because we elect our representatives because we're believing they're going to help us. They're going to, but they're not doing that. They're not doing that. Not even remotely. And I think with the redistricting they did with the gerrymandering and the, Wolf saying, no, I'm not going to do it, but turns it over to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. It's totally
where he knows he has the 6-4 majority.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So he didn't have to do it. So he kind of escaped the backlash there and turned it over to the court. Which is unconstitutional. It's going to get overturned, but maybe not in time, because I believe my district now, which was Scott Perry, is not going to be Scott Perry's district. So I don't know what's going on there between the 13th and the 15th district.
My district now goes all the way to the New York state line.
Yes.
It goes from here all the way to New York and all the way east by Scranton. How in the world? I don't get it, because my understanding of when I read the legal presidents, they said they had the right to do it. The problem is part of that same law. You can't subdivide the law and pick and choose. It's the whole law or nothing. And part of that law says any contest to that has to be brought within 90 days after the committee has finished their work. We're 6 years into the redistricting. So I guess the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania has no idea what 90 days means, or they just decided to ignore that part of the law and do what they wanted.
Exactly.
I think it was probably the latter.
Yes, a lot of courts do that. You see that a lot with our appellate courts. They pretty much do what they want to do. They don't follow the rule of the law. The Constitution just seems to be more of a nuisance to them than anything. So. And that's the problem. We're just kind of wandering away from the rule of law. I mean, you can see that with all the sanctuary cities and a lot of the court rulings, coming down from the appellate courts, especially like the one up to San Francisco. It just does not follow logic. I just think they look at it, a lot of it's just being more of a nuisance than anything.
Well, with the sanctuary cities, that should be a state-by-state issue because naturalization, aka making somebody a citizen, was laid out in the Constitution, but not necessarily immigration. So this is what led to the Virginia and Kentucky nullification and interposition bills.
Yes.
So if California wants to invite the Mexicans in, I am okay with that. But the minute the Mexicans cross into Arizona, if Arizona doesn't want them, they go back. Yeah, but now, there shouldn't be any federal funding to the states either.
No,
under the Constitution. So
exactly,
you get into catch-22s all the time with this.
But see, the thing is, you get into Reconstruction with the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. The 14th Amendment gives them that because they were considered property at the time, not a full person. So they weren't really considered a citizen. So when they had a child, the 14th Amendment gave them natural citizenship. So instead of closing that loophole in the 14th Amendment, which our Congress should have done years ago, that's why they come over here and have a baby. Now, the parents might be illegal, but since they had the child here on American soil, it's automatic natural citizenship. So they need to close that loophole in the 14th Amendment. That was put there distinctly for slavery.
Right. Specifically for the slaves.
Yes, sir.
Welcome back, Jeff.
Welcome back, Jeff.
Oh, I've been here. I just been, truth be told, this discussion was playing out on social media as we discussed. And I told you about this. I'm going to read this from someone, and then I'm going to go to a different one as well to illustrate. You were talking about how people just don't understand the Constitution anymore. Okay, so this is a good friend. Suzanne knows him. Matter of fact, I think you're going to be hanging out with him this coming weekend, if I'm not mistaken, Suzanne. This person wrote, troll, paraphrasing, Lincoln was authorized to use force against the South because Article 1 says he had the power to provide for the calling forth of the militia to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions. You don't understand the Constitution, and your whole argument against Lincoln is void. And so this person wrote, me, quotation, Article 1 delegates power to Congress, not the president, quote, unquote. Okay, let me go to the next one. And because this was just going on just now, I was accused of not knowing anything about the Constitution because I was posted in somewhere saying that immigration is not the same thing as naturalization. They're two different legal terms. One, immigration is going into another country. Naturalization is how you become a citizen. The Constitution grants the authority to the general government to set uniform rules for naturalization. That is not immigration. So I was chided by someone just now because I didn't obviously know anything about the Constitution because Article 1, Section 9 clearly says migration. Okay, let me read Article 1, Section 9. The migration or importation of such persons as of any state now existing shall think proper to admit shall not be prohibited by Congress prior to the year of 1808, but a tax or duty may be imposed on such importation not exceeding $10 for each person. Okay, class, I am going to put it out to you. What, pray tell, was Article 1, Section 9, Paragraph 1 talking about? Anyone?
Slavery.
I was chided because I know nothing about the Constitution because obviously it was there. Migration was put in there for the general government. And I said, oh my gosh, you have got to be kidding me. That is about slavery.
You guys
this is not about my immigration.
I was on Friday. I was excoriated for trying to explain that there was a difference between naturalization and immigration. One guy even said, well, you can't have naturalization without immigrants. So, of course, they're the same. And, I tried very hard. You guys heard that whole segment. It was excruciating. And people just really don't like to have their belief system challenged that we have a national government, pardon the N-word, that can pretty much do what they want. I had several callers on K-Talk, one in the afternoon show on Friday and then the other one that evening, where they said the Congress can make whatever laws they want because, and the gotcha question he had for me was, there were airplanes at the time the Constitution was ratified. So is the FAA unconstitutional? And I said, yeah. We have something called Article 5 where you could amend it if you want to grant them more powers. But people do not like to be challenged. They get very nasty. You guys heard those shows.
Yep. Oh, I heard it. But you had it so well, I just didn't even bother calling in. I was sitting there by the phone. I almost called in. But the reason I read that first quote, and you are seeing him next weekend, right?
Carl? Was that Carl?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I thought so. All right. Well, say hello for all of us.
Well, anyway, just so people know, it's not like some little Facebook rendezvous. I have an actual.
Oh no! Yeah, tell everyone. Yeah, just so everyone knows. That sounded very, very bad. You're going there to speak. You have a speaking engagement. You're going to speak to a group down there. This is not anything nefarious, folks. I'm sorry if it came across that way.
It's the Sons of Confederate Veterans Education Day. Brian McClanahan is on the bill as well. Ryan Walters, the book editor for the Abbeville Institute, and one other gentleman whose name eludes me. So
I wish that I was off this weekend. I would love to travel down there because I would love to meet Brian McClanahan and Carl Jones. He's another wonderful, wonderful historian. I mean, they are some men that have some just incredible knowledge about history. And unfortunately, it's not what is taught today because it's not what the government wants us to know. And where I was going with this whole thing, how this all started, was that what this all is an indication of how the public schools, and I know you're an educator. I'm sorry if I'm offending you, Kurt. The public schools have taken the proper application of the Constitution out of the schools. So you got people like this that think Article 1 gives Lincoln the authority to force the South back into the Union, when Article 1 is clearly Congress. Then you got this guy that's chiding me because obviously immigration is part of the Constitution because it says migrants when it's discussing slavery. And okay, if this guy, let me pull this back up. If this guy was right and I'm a total dunderhead, and I can't figure out that this is slavery or this is actually immigration, who did this clause give the power to decide who comes in? And I'll read it again. As of any of the states now existing shall think proper to admit. So who did that clause give the power to admit? If this is indeed immigration, if I'm a dunderhead and I don't get the fact and I'm stupid and it is immigration, who did that clause, paragraph 1 of section 9, give the authority to decide who is admitted? Anyone? I said it, the states. It was the states. So even if you're going to apply that, it gives all the power to the states to decide who is an immigrant.
The other argument we hear too is, well, after that expired, then it implied because they brought it up, it implied Congress had the power to regulate immigration after the fact. And there's no evidence to support that supposition, none whatsoever.
So if that clause was time sensitive and it expired at date specific, which it did, then that clause is useless anyway. It's dead. As of 1808, it died. It has no further use in the Constitution because it is done.
And that was only added so the states that had slavery would ratify the Constitution. That's correct. All about.
So it's just amazing how the whole idea of the Constitution now, and again, you were talking about this a little bit ago, Kurt, and I'll bring this up here. I kind of just let Daniel keep going with it because you're his guest at his house and in studio. But the fact of the matter is, what you use the word conservative, and I'm not. This is an attack on you or any way, shape, or form. This is an attack on the whole idea of conservatism today. Today conservatism is what? What are they actually conserving? They're conserving big government, and that doesn't matter whether it's Republicans or Democrats. They're all conservatives. They're all Marxists that are conserving big government, and that is the problem we face today in government. So I'm sorry. Go ahead. I kind of went off on a rant right there, but it's something that's been bothering me.
Also, the lobbyist, and it'll get back to what you said a little earlier when you were talking about, the states and immigration, right? But the fact is, if you look at California, well, if that's the states and the state should take care of that, why are they using federal dollars? And we just ought to, cut the federal dollars off for these sanctuary cities.
Exactly.
Good.
That's exactly it. That's the answer. And if they want them there, they pay for it. They'll figure out a way to pay for it. Or these people will go home. Because the fact of the matter is, if the federal government cut off all this housing, welfare, healthcare, education, everything we pay for these people that come here, because they're coming here for our benefits. They're not coming here to work. They're coming here because they get everything paid for them. They're making more. They're making more on welfare than I'm making working.
They're not here to assimilate, it was quite different than yesteryear. People came here to America. They wanted to be in America. They loved being in America. They would do whatever they had to do to learn English, and embrace our culture. Anymore, they're waving their flags in the streets, demanding things. They don't have constitutional rights, but yet they're demanding things. And I looked up the stats on, all the entitlements, that they're receiving, not just them, but, a lot of people who's just dependent upon the government. It goes out a little bit over $70,000 a year. And get back to my earlier statement that the median income for people in Pennsylvania as a whole is just in the low mid 50s. So they're living better than an Americans. Have you ever seen a homeless immigrant? No, you're not going to see that, And so it is quite bizarre. They get tuition breaks and, we're paying for their medical, then you get housing allowance. I mean, they get in food stamps. Oh, unbelievable. 2 carts full of food and stuff. And I'm holding macaroni and cheese with 3 college degrees and they hop out in a brand new vehicle. It just, something seriously needs to be done. That these immigrants, even in Europe, they're not going to states that don't have welfare states. They're going to all these countries that have welfare. Look at Germany, they're going broke. And I mean, it just continues right on down the line. And
then you look at a state or a country like Switzerland, where if you don't hold a job and they give you one chance as an immigrant on the dole, if you don't make it after that one time, and I believe it's sunsetted for 2 years or something like that, they kick you out. You're done.
Oh yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's amazing how much the countries that allow them to just suckle the money off.
Yeah, Merkel really did a number on Germany. She's really done a number on Germany, and and I mean, you look at Poland; they don't have any issues. They don't allow Muslims. China, no Muslims. Japan, no Muslims.
Poland's actually started going heavy Christian too. I think didn't Poland ban abortion, Jeff?
I'm not familiar with that.
They were trying to. I don't know if it ever passed. I know that was on their agenda there. But then there was a big outcry from the rest of Europe because they didn't want them, whatever. But yes, it was attempted. I don't know if it ever was finalized.
Look that up. Eventually, whenever I take a break. Let's see. We're talking the immigration. So, okay. Well, since I brought up the abortion question, where do you stand on the abortion?
I'm pro-life.
Pro-life?
Yeah, me and my wife, when we got married, we became Catholic together. So we had to go through the classes. It took me 2 years. It took my wife 1.5 years. But fortunate, I was working for National Right to Work at the time, so we had to live apart. So we became.
Daniel, Suzanne, I'm thinking.
I'm here. Did we lose?
They
Catholic incest the first trimester under a.
I'm sorry, you guys froze for a good 30 seconds.
Oh, good way.
So I don't know if you. I don't know. I mean, I couldn't hear you. You were gone. So I don't know what happened. So that's why I was talking to Suzanne.
He asked me about my stance on abortion.
Okay. Yep. And that's the last I heard. And then you guys were frozen, and Suzanne and I were talking, and then you guys came back. Well, so we all missed it all.
Can you hear us now?
Yep.
Yeah, well, I was simply explaining to him that my wife and I became Catholic together, and then we were married in the Catholic Church. I am pro-life, but I do believe in certain circumstances like death to the mother, rape, incest. If it's done within the first trimester, under supervision of the medical doctor and parental consent, if they're a minor, I have to struggle with it, but we can't play God either. I mean, there's always going to be circumstances. And then under that, if everything is, parental consent or, under doctor supervision, then I might be okay with that. But I struggle with that. But I just realize that being a mere mortal, I'm not God, and I can't sit up here on some, a pedestal and pass laws that's just going to blanket everybody and everything. There's always circumstances. But late-term abortions, no way. I do not believe in funded Planned Parenthood. I do not believe in that. If people understand how Planned Parenthood came along, it'd blow a lot of people's minds, especially African American who predominantly votes Democrats. It was created by a lady named Sarah, who established it to actually kill off African Americans. And so it's kind of bizarre. And fanning out body parts for monetary gain, I just think is an atrocity. But that's as far as I'm going to go with that. That's as far as I'm going to go with that. Anything beyond the first trimester, no.
Okay. We tend to be a little more hardcore on it, where I'm Baptist, and we believe that life begins at conception,
yes.
which Catholics do too.
Yes.
So we hold to the biblical principle of we can't judge the sins of the father onto the son,
mm-hmm.
or the sins of the mother onto the daughter.
Yeah.
So therefore, we have to honor God by not allowing it at all. That's personal beliefs. That's how we view it, at least at my church anyway. I know there's Baptists are all over the place.
And I do, and I respect that, and I do. And this is to say is just that there's always going to be circumstances, and I don't want to. God's going to be the final judge. You know that as well as I do. But again, as a mere mortal, I can't just put a blanket and say, under any circumstances, I don't want to do that. I do believe.
Question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
In the state of Oklahoma, Dan Fisher is running for governor on a platform of not regulating but abolishing abortion. If he gets elected, the first thing he's going to do is request that the legislature immediately criminalize the act of human abortion, all of them. If you were in Oklahoma, or if you had a governor in Pennsylvania who took that platform and you could do thumbs up or thumbs down, would you vote to abolish it, not regulate it, if you had a chance?
That's a very tough question. Like I said, I'm going to, I believe as a Catholic, I don't like the whole idea of abortion. I do not. But again, I want to go back and I want to believe that I'm not God, and I just cannot. God's going to be the final judge. But if it's death to the mother or rape or incest within the first trimester under doctor supervision, if they're a minor, and then, parental consent, I think that as far as I'm going to go with that. But then I struggle with that internally.
So you would vote no then?
Yes,
if you had a chance to criminalize abortion, you would vote no?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Jeff, you got any more questions? We're ticking down on your time here.
No, that's fine. I went off on my rant a minute ago, and I really didn't get in. I didn't get a rant in on the whole property tax thing, which is fine. I will change gears a little bit because we can. Anyway. As a PA state representative, when it comes right down to it, you are a representative of the state of Pennsylvania, and you're given a choice. A federal court says that it is illegal to own a AR-15 or an AK-47. What constitution do you cite, and what stance do you take?
Well, I stand on the Second Amendment. The fact is our forefathers put it there for a reason. So, I mean, I don't see any reason why we can't own an AK or an AR. And unlike Wagner, I don't believe raising age up to 21 is a deterrent. You know, I mean, when you can be 17, 18 years old and go to war, I was in the Army, so, you know, I know all about that. I don't think that's a deterrent at all. I do like the idea of arming teachers who want to go through the training and become adequate with firearms and protection. I think that's fine. It's just amazing to me how we got to this place, you know, where kids are walking into schools and just blowing people away. And back in my day, that we've never even conceived that ever happening. And here we are. And frankly, I think a lot of it has to do with the video games that they're, you know, playing every day. They're just desensitized. I don't think they can distinguish what's real, what's not. It's just bizarre to me. But no, I wouldn't ban ARs. I wouldn't ban AKs. And well, I would not.
It's my question really isn't about whether you would ban it. I mean, okay, we have federal rulings that states must honor gay marriage, and the states are honoring gay marriage. We have courts saying that men can use women's bathrooms, and the states are knuckling and allowing men to use women's bathrooms. Now we'll have a judge say that we have no right to have a AR or an AK, and how would you respond to that judge? And how would you as a representative respond to that judge? And what would you do in this state representative, as a state representative?
The Second Amendment of our Constitution, it does not state what firearms we can use. It just says that, you know, we have our Second Amendment right to bear arms. It doesn't go down and just, you know, a list and say AR or AK. I would say the judge is overstepping his bounds. Period.
Okay. Well,
answer that one adequate.
I'm gonna just interject here because, and I'm not. This isn't a gotcha. You know, because really when it comes down to it, our Constitution, Article 1, I believe it's 26. Daniel, I can't remember, 26 or 23.
The PA Bill of Rights.
Yeah,
26. I have to look.
I'm pretty sure it's 26. As a PA state representative, that should be, and I'm going to do a little I'm going to teach a little bit. That should be your fallback. That judge says you can't have an AR, AK. You say our Constitution says my right to keep and bear arms shall not be questioned, and that's not because the Second Amendment. And that's now you're a PA representative. You're representing me indirectly, even though I'm not in your district. You're representing the people of Pennsylvania, and that's the Constitution that at that point should be applied. And that's the only reason I asked which Constitution, and it really wasn't a gotcha. And I don't want you to feel like you're gotcha, because unfortunately, this is where a lot of people just lose the track of what they're doing. I have this argument with other people from other states. It's, listen, when it really comes down to it, the only Constitution that matters to you as a representative is the PA state Constitution. Whether it's a Texan, then it's a Texas Constitution. That judge telling you can't have an AR or AK, as a representative of the people of Pennsylvania, District 91, you should say, you don't have authority to make that ruling in Pennsylvania. That is covered under our Constitution. Sorry about your luck. Go somewhere else and try that. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox. That's how we look at the Constitution. That the one that matters to you is the PA one, and that's the one we should always. And again, that's the one I quote all the time because that's the one that matters to me. I'm a PA citizen. That's the one that matters, and that's the one that I live under because I live inside these borders.
And I think the point also Jeff is making here is there's a huge misconception among pretty much everybody that there's such a thing called Second Amendment rights. And when I go on radio shows all around and I am in studio and tell them that there is no such thing as a Second Amendment right, jaws drop. And then I proceed to explain further that the Second Amendment was merely intended to be a restriction upon the general government. So if we can get away from using the term rights, First Amendment right, Second Amendment right, then we will understand that it is a restriction on the general government. That way they cannot say, well, rights are subject to reasonable regulation, which opens the door for the common sense gun regulations and so on and so forth. And then they get to strip away the rights that pre-existed the Second Amendment, which is why I never refer to them as Second Amendment rights. Second Amendment restricts the general government only. And if you keep it as a restriction and stay pure, then they don't have the wiggle room to come up with all these laws that are unconstitutional. And with regards to federal firearms laws, I submit to you that each and every single one is.
Yeah, because the PA Constitution actually says the right can't be questioned. And under such guidelines right now, we have a CCW permit with past background checks, which nobody's arguing any of these, but it seems like the government thinks they have the right to question when their ability to question is strictly prohibited by the state constitution. Now, the Second Amendment says shall not be infringed, but if you read the preamble to the Bill of Rights, it's restrictive clauses against the Congress being able to do it, where the PA one would be against the legislature being able to say, well, under the 9th and 10th Amendment, the Second Amendment doesn't apply to us. We can do whatever we want. Then the state constitution kicks in and goes, no, 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 you can't touch that.
And that's why I love having guests like this on the show that are actually wanting to get out there and make a difference and getting the opportunity, because we know once they get in office, we have no access. So when we have somebody that's trying to get in and we could say, look, you know, this is from a state perspective, we need to put the focus on not what the general constitution and the Bill of Rights says, but what the Pennsylvania state constitution says vis-a-vis firearms. And I have to say, the Pennsylvania one is way better than Utah. We think we have great gun rights in Utah. And the Utah Constitution says that we have a right to keep and bear arms, but that right can be, the legislature of Utah has the right to regulate them. So we really don't have as many. It's just been pretty much luck of the draw. But as our demographics are changing, that's going to happen. And then we get down to other issues as jury nullification, as laws are as laws change. So that's why I really like to, when we have an opportunity to speak to somebody that's going to represent individuals at the state level, is to know that what we really need to look at is what does your local government, what does the state constitution say, and stop referring to the Second Amendment. For instance, a lot of people right now are cheering the NRA on for suing Florida now for raising the age to 21. Well, if Florida wants to do that, that's within their providence to do so if it does not violate their constitution. If you don't like what your state is doing vis-a-vis your rights or whatever else they're doing, but specifically, for instance, with regards to your firearms rights, you vote with your feet and you leave. That's what I did. I left California because my vote would never count. I would never effectuate a change in the state of California. But the biggest mistake people are doing is running to the federal judiciary to guarantee their Second Amendment rights. And then what happens, we have more and more regulation coming from the very entity that we have sought to preserve these rights. And this was my big issue with national reciprocity. I won't go down that road now. I know that we don't have a lot of time, but maybe I can get your email address and I can send you some of these articles about federalism. That's kind of my thing. It's something I talk about all the time.
Yeah. And I just want to, I'm sorry, Kurt's saying something, but I don't hear him. I saw you talk.
Yeah, I just told her I'd be more than happy to give her my email address.
Oh, great. Okay. No, I'd love to send you these articles. Yeah,
Daniel can do it in the message box in the sidebar here, or in Twitter after the show. And I'm not. This isn't directed to you, Kurt, because I'm going to just discuss this because Suzanne kind of opened the door on this. So I'm going to, if we are going to apply the Bill of Rights as rights given to us by government, that makes them civil rights. Civil rights are subject to regulation and revocation if they're actually civil rights. And what I often say, and I try to get people to realize that what we're discussing, these are actually natural rights. I have a natural right to self-preservation. That goes beyond the Constitution. It was pre-existing the Constitution. The natural rights already were there. They were recognized long before that. They were recognized back before the Magna Carta as natural rights. So if they're natural rights, what did the Bill of Rights do then? Again, you have to go, like Suzanne said, go to the preamble. It says there that the number of the states wanted further declaratory and restrictive clauses so that the general government wouldn't misconstruct or abuse its powers, so that it could be instituted to the beneficent end of the people. It's all out of order, but that's basically the paraphrase of what the preamble says. So they put it there to restrict the general government so they couldn't regulate natural rights. Again, if we're going to demand Second Amendment rights, we're demanding civil rights. Civil rights are subject to their whim if you apply properly, as the framers intended it by the preamble. Every single, as Suzanne said just a minute ago eloquently, every single federal firearms law is unconstitutional. It is of no effect in any state. Go to the Virginia, Kentucky resolutions, and that is that's the blueprint of how the state responds to an unconstitutional law. So that history lesson done. Daniel, go ahead. I'm sorry, I really am hogging the time up here at the end. Go ahead and keep going. Well, I know you have him for another hour, so
I got him for another hour if he doesn't mind around for it.
If he doesn't mind, if we haven't chased him away, I'm sorry. I hope we didn't chase you away.
No, I got a question that Virginia, Kentucky, what you was saying is, how can I get a hold of that? Where can I go to get that?
You can Google it. Virginia and Kentucky resolutions of 1798. It's often called the Principles of 98. Jefferson wrote the Kentucky resolutions. Madison wrote the Virginia resolutions. In the Virginia resolutions, Madison talks about the principle of interposition. That's where the state interposes between the people and the federal government. So there's an unconstitutional law. The state steps between the people and the federal government and interposes for them and protects them from.
I'll get them some articles too as well.
Okay, that'd be great. And then the Kentucky resolutions Jefferson wrote, and in that he talks about nullification. So the state, through nullification, says that is an unconstitutional law. You have no authority to do that. The state of Kentucky is now nullifying that law. It is void and of no effect in this state. Those were the two principles there with those. Interposition, nullification. And that's the blueprint. Jefferson and Madison gave us a blueprint how, and that was in relation to the Alien and Sedition Acts. We're out of time, but that was in relation to the Alien and Sedition Acts. They were unconstitutional, obviously, because Madison and Jefferson, they should know the Constitution. So anyway, thank you for being here. I'm done. Daniel has you for another hour. Thank you for joining us. And I hope we have you again, and I hope we didn't scare you away.
No, you just scared me away. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, this has been the Renegade and the Rambler show. This is the March 11th edition, 2018. And our guest was Kurt Holland, running for the PA House District 91. And like we said, he'll be right back after this, if you're listening to the radio stream, with me for a whole nother hour. So it should be fun.
Yes, it will be.
So we're going to cut the YouTube feed. You should already have a link on Facebook for the next show. And if you're listening to the radio stream, just keep listening. The music should keep playing. You'll never even realize we cut stream.